Welcome to Vanishing Gates. I am Jay, and these two are...
The very perturbed Jack.
Katie Cat.
Anyway, so tonight's topic, we're going to talk about the Scotia Inn, which as it sounds is an inn. It's in Northern California, so it's really close to home. It's a place I've been numerous times. We'll talk about the history of it. It's alleged to be haunted.
I've never been there.
Never been there?
I didn't even know that was a thing until you told me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's been around for a long time. So, history goes back like this. In 1882, a logging camp was formed and grew from a few tents and cabins into a company town owned by Pacific Lumber Company, or PALCO for some. And around the turn of the century, there were something like 500 workers / employees. It was the last of the paternalist company towns. So the paternalist company towns are towns that were formed like a sort of utopian workers village, which the company would have control over the goings on and the people there, the residents. They would basically force the middle class or the lower class to live middle class lifestyles, even if they couldn't afford it. So they're forcing those ideals and values on the working class folks.
Is that like the, what is it? There was that song about the company store. Kind of like
Yeah.
that, where you had to buy from them.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Same kind of concept. That would have been part of the whole thing.
Mm.
The town was originally it was called Forestville, but in 1888, when a post office was opened, they had to change the name to Scotia. The reason being there was a town called Forestville already on the Russian River that had a postal code in California. Being that many of the loggers were from Nova Scotia, that's what they settled on as a name, was Scotia. Possibly they did this over a coin toss. There's some argument as to whether or not that's true. It was either going to be Nova Scotia or New Brunswick, so it was going to be Scotia or Brunswick. Is the story, as much as the research that I could find. As the town grew, it needed a hotel. There had been a hostel on Main Street that burned down in the early 1900s. It was eventually replaced by Hotel Moatok, which is first constructed in 1923. The first wing of it was, so the first unit anyway. And then the second unit was constructed in 1924. It had 135 rooms for company workers, guests, and tourists. Now, only 18 of those rooms were available to the public, so it was mostly, workers that lived there. The hotel was said to be like the grand resorts you'd find at our national parks at the time. And sometime in the 1940s, the Moatok got rebranded into the Scotia Inn, which is how I knew it forever. So I used to go there a lot for work, at least twice a month, sometimes more than that, because I worked for a local beer distributor, as many of you know. I was still working for that distributor when I started the show.
I was there too, actually.
Yeah, and I haven't been there for quite a few years into Scotia in general. I don't hardly ever go. Aside from my doctor's office is essentially there, but they send me to the one in a place called Mad River, which is way out of the way. Long story, so I very seldom go to Scotia for anything. But I've heard a lot of stories of the hauntings that were supposedly taking place there currently.
I don't ever remember going to Scotia. To be honest, we weren't adults till I actually went to Bad River. I've never been around this area.
You've gone to Scotia when you were a little kid. We went there with Barry to do the steam donkeys and stuff.
Scotia's the place where all the doctors' offices are.
Yeah, I think your mom might go there too.
I feel like that's where I just went to the dentist with her.
Yeah, because that's where I go.
I think that was where.
Well, but it's the doctor's office that runs my doctor. My doctor's out in Mad River, so I go there occasionally.
We live in this weird problem with our town where all of the towns that are on the outskirts that are supposed to be really small are much nicer than the primary towns.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call Scotia nice. It's a lot nicer than it looks.
It's really small.
It is very, very small.
Not much going on there.
So, I'm getting ahead of myself here in my notes. So I found one story about the hauntings in particular on Reddit that I wanted to share. It's from a deleted user, otherwise I'd share the username. So it goes like, this is what the post is. 2 years in a haunted Victorian inn is the title. And it says, as the title says, I worked in a Victorian inn for 2 years. That place was crazy haunted. After a while, I got used to it and weird things became commonplace annoyances. It was called the Scotia Inn in Scotia, California. Google it, it's a real place. Though it's no longer open at this point in time. And this post is from like 5 years ago, guys. Or so.
COVID, maybe?
No, it was
During
closed
COVID?
for a while before that. And we'll go into that. There's a whole history behind it. So there is one Ghost Hunters blog post about it, but I can tell you that their story is totally fake. I was there when they did their investigation. Their story is completely made up except for one fact: the closet door did violently shake in the middle of the night. Otherwise, everything they say is made up. I don't know what this person's referencing at all, but there's apparently a ghost hunter had gone there and has a blog about it, a popular enough blog where this person says they were there for that, and it was total BS.
So, like, they had things set up.
Yeah, something like that. So this person says it was built in 1888, the same year the town was founded, which is not accurate. It was originally called the Moatok Inn. That's accurate. It burned down in 1920. It was rebuilt in 1923. None of that's accurate, except for the 1923 and renamed the Scotia Inn. So that's not what happened. The burning down of the place was the hostel prior. It actually sat as a vacant lot, burnt down for a few years before forming into they rebuilt the first wing, as we said. So, guys, keep in mind, this person worked there. They're not a historian. I just did an awful lot of digging. This person's going by what they heard from working at the place. I've come in contact with that living, especially here, where we have a lot of Victorian-era houses. There's a lot of stories handed down for the history of this place that aren't accurate. But you're going to repeat what you know. So it's not that this person's trying to deceive you. This is just what they believe to be true. So the building is U-shaped, kind of, yeah, that's accurate. And the bend of the U being the front of the building that faces the street. The building is 3 stories high, but includes an attic and a basement, along with a smaller bar in one corner of the downstairs area. There's also, maybe not at the time, well, I know there was actually at the time they were there, because I was working there when they worked there, working for the beer distributor and go in there. There's actually was another bar upstairs they had never finished in the second floor. Second or third floor. I don't remember. I remember having to carry a
2
keg.
bars?
Yeah, I remember having to carry kegs
Nice.
up and down because they had it open for an event. So it might have been on the third floor.
There's a
Kind
good-
of hotel.
Good question for it is when was the when was the prohibition? Prohibition. Can't remember which year.
So in the 20s.
Maybe that's when they had that second bar. Maybe it was a speakeasy kind of thing.
Well, yeah, there is more to it than that, but that doesn't really. We're not going to go into that in this one. So, the second bar was there later. It was just one that never got finished, or it was only ran for a short time.
Got it.
It wasn't a finished bar. When I delivered there, they didn't use it for anything. They had it for one event. So I think it was on the third floor, which has not been open for very, very long.
Totally a
time.
speakeasy.
Well, they were just in the middle of trying to do stuff, and they needed to put the keg up there for a private event.
Mm.
So, kegs. I had to carry a bunch of kegs up 3 flights of stairs.
Ooh.
So, and
No
it was
elevator?
not nice flights of stairs. No, it wasn't working.
That sucks.
So, when I started working there in 2014, is what this continues to say. The third floor was closed down. Yes, as was Hall B of the downstairs area. Also, I do remember that. The only areas open for use were Wing A, which was 3 rooms for rent and a small conference room. The entire second floor, which consisted of 21 rooms and an exercise room, and the downstairs ballroom and carpeted dining room. Yeah, I definitely was there in 2014, for sure. Let's see. Now for the activity. It was all over the place, but also specific things were in specific areas. My first experience happened when I had been working there about 2 weeks. I grew up in the town of Scotia and had, of course, heard the rumors since childhood. Everyone knew the inn was haunted, but I didn't know specifics. The computer everyone had to clock in on was in the kitchen. I got there between 6:30 and 7 in the morning. The kitchen was usually empty. I went up the stairs, and around a blank corner. There was a man standing in between the freezer and the counter. He didn't say anything.
Ew.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
It is, yeah.
Oh my god.
He was wearing some sort of black uniform with gold buttons, something I couldn't recognize at the time. I blinked and he was gone. I was startled but not exactly scared. I was more excited that the rumors were true. I told my boss and she said, "Oh, that was Frank." So Frank was the janitor at the inn.
Frank would have maybe shit himself.
Yeah, for real. I would have screamed.
This guy's got better. Got like some strongness to him. I'm like,
The
"Ah,
startle
fucking shit myself
factor.
around."
Startle factor 100. So Frank was the janitor at the inn. He used to live in one of the rooms upstairs. It's rumored that he died of old age on the premises. Before he was a janitor, Frank was a sailor. In a black uniform, I googled it. Sailors in the 1900s and 1930s used to wear black uniforms with gold buttons. After Frank came other things. It's hard for me to remember what order exactly, but I know I noticed the shadows soon after. Hall A on the second floor is where they were most active. They were just shadows that would move on their own for no reason. The hall had rooms on either side, but even when the rooms were empty and the doors were shut, unexplained shadows in that hallway would move around. They would move if the doors were open too. Then it was easier to blame it on the lights from the window or something, but I knew it wasn't that. The shadows were moving by themselves. They weren't shadow people, not in the hall at least. There was a shadow person in Hall B on the second floor. That's the bend of U shape of the building. He would come in and out of room 214. Fun fact, the building was so old that when they built it, they skipped the number 13, so there was no room 213. And that's, well, yeah, that's kind of accurate, I guess.
That's an old
So,
superstition.
Yeah.
why did they skip 13?
13's a bad number.
Well, same as you don't have a 13th
Oh.
floor, you know what I mean?
If you go to Japan,
so
they
it's
know.
a superstitious thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you go to like Japan and stuff like that, I think it's the floor 13 doesn't exist on anything.
There's
They
a lot
don't-
of old buildings. It's usually a
They
landing.
skip. Yeah, they like skip it.
So it goes from 12 to 14.
Yeah, usually in some places they don't do that
I didn't even
anymore.
know that.
But
Some old buildings did it. It's not. It's not really common now. People are so
Yeah.
superstitious.
so the shadow man would come out of the room and walk down the hall or just across the hall into the exercise room. Once he stepped directly into my path. My vision was blacked out completely, but it was very briefly. It was as if it was as dark as if I had just closed my eyes. In room 215, the room the ghost hunters I mentioned stayed in, the closet door would rattle violently in the middle of the night. Oh, that's what she said they said though. Oh no, she said that's the one thing that she could verify. That's right. In room 216, there was something in the bathroom. I don't know what it was, but whenever I was cleaning that bathroom, I did it as fast as possible because I got the feeling I wasn't alone in there. Yeah. At the end of Hall C, on the second floor, there was a vanity table with an old mirror. If you walked down the hallway while looking in the mirror, you would see a man standing behind you. Of course, if you turned around, no one was there. In that same hallway, you would hear someone whistling a tune. Downstairs next to the dining room, there was this little seating area that had wooden doors that could be pulled closed to shut off from the dining room. We jokingly called it the cave because it was unnaturally dark in there. It was like looking into the pitch blackness, even though the dining area was decently lit. Where it led into the cave, it just cut off in the darkness, to the darkness. In that same downstairs area, there were public bathrooms, which had a hall that led to what used to be the owner's living area. That area was guarded by Abigail. She used to be the lady of the manor. People have glimpsed the older woman in a dress and her hair pulled back in a bun. But there are scratches on the mirrors, which have been replaced and the scratches come back. Could just be vandalism, though. The stall doors slam, the lights flicker, and more than once light bulbs have exploded. And there's just a deep feeling of unease back there. Those are the big things. There's an array of small things that have happened as well. I caught a glimpse of a small girl on the landing stairs. She vanished as well. There was something something I think she meant that mimicked our voices. I would hear coworkers calling to me from down a hallway when I knew they were somewhere else. Sometimes
Ooh, that's creepy.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
And also, I've heard that's really bad. Like, if you hear your own voice, bad.
Yeah, doppelganger's not good.
Doppelganger, bad news.
Yeah,
Nothing. Anyway, so yeah, not good news for the doppelganger. Let's see. They were somewhere else. Sometimes people that weren't even working at that day. Sometimes the door wouldn't unlock unless you asked it to. Once I felt something tug on the back of my shirt and ask for help. I thought it was my boss's kid, so I said yes and turned around. No one was there. I have a few more random little tales as well as stories from growing up in haunted houses, but I feel like I just needed to get this story out somewhere. I'll try to remember to link this in the comments here on YouTube. If I don't, forgive me. I'll try to do that again later.
That brings up a question. Cause I don't know much about like hearing voices. Every once in a while, you'll go. In my life, I've never ever heard. I thought I've never ever heard that before, but I think about like when I was younger or a few years ago, maybe when we were in that old apartment. It's so weird that they say that because I've never thought that was a phenomenon because I've heard like people in other rooms before because I think people like it's not like to me though I mean maybe if you guys have ever experienced it's not really clear to me maybe it's just me being crazy or I'm doing something
like
and I'm just thinking
mumbled
it. It just sounds like it's less like that and more like a feeling down the back of your neck. It's like you hear it in your head almost more than you actually hear it in another room. And then you kind of turn like you hear like it's like you're thinking it like a thought that you didn't want to think about. You're not thinking about it, but you hear someone all of a sudden. It's like when you're partially asleep and you just hear someone. I do that all the time. I'll hear someone say my name while I'm about to be asleep,
Yeah.
and then I just pop awake.
So my friend Kevin's sister got married at the Scotia Inn, and he was telling me today that during their time there, he would be walking and it sounded like the doors were trying to get you to open them. He couldn't quite explain it in a way that made sense,
They
but
were,
it
like,
was
jiggling, or
no, like the walls would creak different in a different sound than what the doors would make, and it would sound kind of like they were trying to get you to open certain doors in the building while he was walking through. But he also said he was super drunk, so it could also have been that.
That could also.
But I have heard that from other people's similar stories.
Yeah.
So in the thread, the original poster also goes on to say, "Oh, I have a bunch of other little stories from it, like how people staying there would often report hearing children playing in Hall C on the second floor. They would hear a ball bouncing in the hallway in the middle of the night. It was fun to see their faces when you told them there were no children at the inn that night that were staying there, and that many other people have reported the same kind of thing." So another couple stories that came from that thread. The Mom 360 wrote, "I work at Hobie's and I will see shadows occasionally." Hobie's, for the record, is directly across the street. It's a shop. It's a little convenience store, or not a convenience store. It's a grocery store, right across the street from the inn. So, and
Local
there's a
one.
good chance I know this person.
I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's in
Yeah,
Riota.
'cause
It's
I've
in
never
Scotia.
heard of it. So.
Yeah, it's a locally owned store. So I work at Hobie's and I will see shadows occasionally and feel like I'm not alone when I know I'm alone in my department. It's super interesting. I feel like ghosts like to venture across the street sometimes and visit us. It's a good little story.
Interesting.
Yeah. Apprehensive ad 406 says from the same thread. What a freaking username.
Yeah.
"My mom worked there in the mid to late 90s, and we would go with her. She was a bartender, and the staff would let us run loose in the lobby and in the stairs. We were generally well behaved, though. At the time, you would have to drive over an old bridge to get there that screeched when you would go over it. That bridge has definitely been replaced by something much sturdier, I can vouch. Made my older sister cry, scared her too much. My mom told us about a man that would sit in the banquet room at the end of the night. His name was Frank, in bold letters, because now it's like, oh my God, Frank."
Yeah.
I always remembered that story. It just always gave shivers down my spine. That's all from the same thread. Now, I would love for the original poster or any of these posters to get in touch with me, because I'd like to hear their stories in person. Especially because I'm relatively sure they're probably still in the area, and local is a lot easier to communicate with sometimes than traveling.
Yeah.
But I would love to hear more from the OP on all of this stuff. So I was hearing a lot of other things. So Frank is a common denominator. The idea that Frank might have been a janitor there is the story. I couldn't find a single shred of evidence to say Frank ever existed in any capacity. That said, the situation with the lodging itself being part of a company town makes it much more difficult to find any information on things, especially if Frank died a long time ago. Because when a big company would run a small town and people died, sometimes they just did not get reported. They would just be gone, dealt with. It wasn't a big deal back then to them. It wasn't like Palco gave a shit about it.
Man, they, the thing is they have a lot of holdings in our area though too.
Mm-hmm.
So, they,
Well, they got bought out, I think, not too long ago, but.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so in 2009, the inn went up for sale for $2.5 million. And for a while, it sat in transition with that third floor being a real issue for sale. 22 rooms doesn't seem that grand, as a hotel. It just doesn't. And especially for an inn of that caliber. Even the broker handling the sale at the time, a guy named Jeff Durham, said 22 rooms is cute, but that whole third floor would make a solid business. One of the issues they were facing in the sale was allotment. So the whole 400-acre town is on one tax parcel, and separate buildings and homes cannot be sold the regular way. But rather, you have to offer a lease and then eventually plan for a subdivision, and the town has to get involved directly. There's a whole bunch of shit that needs to go on. Eventually, the town of Scotia did get ownership of the site, but after a slew of openings and closings and restaurants going in and out, I can vouch for seeing those happen a lot. At least 3 that I'm aware of that I was involved with, just going in and dealing with them on a not a day-to-day, but on a relatively frequent basis. Closed, after a bunch of openings and closings, it just suffered years and years of neglect in general. And in 2021, the Humboldt-based social club bought the inn from the town, rebranded it the Scotia Lodge, and started working on restoring the place with the aims of catering to the cannabis tourism. So that is something they say, not me. Basically trying to turn wine country here, the style of wine country, but with a weed vibe. It boasts a current 22 rooms, still, a spa, drinks at the Wonder Bar, which is their bar there, and from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. or 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. coffee breaks and small bites. The third floor is still under renovation, and no word from the social club on Frank. They didn't mention anything about Frank on their website.
Well, frankly,
So-
that's crazy.
I'm going to see about getting a hold of them. I think I still know some of the people from when they started because I was working with them as a beer distributor. Not like working with them tight, but like
Yeah.
doing their beer lines and stuff like that. I installed their draft system at their first location. Very, very cool people. But interesting. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I imagine that they wouldn't really see Frank. If they're all really stoned all the time.
Right.
Maybe
They're
they'll
probably
see 'em a
just
lot.
ignoring it.
Or
They're like,
drunk.
I heard that.
Or
it's
drunk
fine."
at the bar.
They're so high, they're just like, did you guys see that? We all saw something, bro. Calm down.
So I found in research there's a ton of people that have stories, but no one wanting to write it down. It was really hard to find more than a couple stories online, even about people talking about it. I couldn't find the ghost hunter that went there. I do know there was a ghost TV show at some point. I don't remember which one that was supposed to have gone there. I don't recall who it was.
Yeah, I don't think it was Ghost Adventures.
I
think it
don't
was
remember.
Ghost Hunters or something.
Yeah, we've
Yeah,
been
I think it
watching
was
those guys
Ghost
forever.
Hunters.
We would have seen some. Well, I stopped watching Ghost Hunters back.
I feel like it was Ghost Hunters because when we did the Eureka Inn show live,
Mhm.
they talked about them trying to get in there and do it as well after having
Mhm.
done Scotia.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to do a
It was
whole
probably
Humboldt
that
County
one.
thing.
Yeah.
So I think it
Perfect.
might have been them. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. If you guys know, if you're a big fan of taps, let me know. And, it'd be cool to talk about here.
It's interesting that they want to do the inns and stuff like that. They want to do Scotian stuff. But I've never heard of anyone wanting to go down into the Shanghai tunnels out in Old Town.
You can't get into most of them. And they're not like you can travel through them. I've been into a couple of them, and you can't, now they're basements.
Oh.
There's allegedly ones that still run under some of the streets, but those buildings are all owned that are interconnected, so it doesn't matter. They're owned by the same people.
Yeah.
So it's private. It's going to be a private underground tunnel if it is.
There's the story is interesting because there's it's not just, we're an old town basically. Our entire area is pretty old. A lot of the houses are hundreds of years old.
Eureka used to be the state capital
It was the
before
state capital?
Sacramento. Yeah, it was a state
Oh,
capital.
that's right. The
before
fort was
Sacramento
where they were.
That was like,
Where
what,
one of the
100
original
years
forts,
ago
right?
or something?
Longer ago than that, I believe.
Yeah.
But like we are our port is a day closer to Asia than anywhere else in the country.
Wasn't it? Yeah. Wasn't
Like
Ulysses?
our bay,
Was it
right
Ulysses?
here.
Was it Grant that was stationed out here?
Grant was stationed here. I believe
And
McKinley was stationed
Humboldt
here.
was technically the.
We've had a few presidents stationed
Primary,
here in the
yeah.
military.
But that's something about Humboldt that's interesting though. Is we're so old. A lot of our houses are hundreds of years old. There's ghost towns. There's ghost stories all over this town. And some of them I'm so interested in is we got like bunkers out at our beach, and I'm so
Centerville
curious.
Beach has bunkers. Well, that's from World War II. A lot of that stuff. There was actually a shipwreck off our coast.
Yeah,
There's pictures of it. One of our naval vessels, was shipwrecked here for a while.
We're really treacherous out here for like water because people will go kayaking or
Yeah,
canoeing. People will walk
the
on our
mouth of our bay is super dangerous.
People-
super dangerous.
Yeah, they go out there and they'll walk on the what is that? The jetty. They'll walk on the jetty, not pay attention. Those rogue waves come right up.
Yeah, we have these
right out.
man-made jetties. So the Pacific Ocean's a big thing, guys. I don't know if you know this.
It's a
It's
little
the
big.
biggest body of
It's a little
water
big.
on the planet.
It's at least a tub full.
Well, for liquid water anyway. And where our bay is, we have these two jetties that merge, the north and south jetty, and it creates. They put it there because there's this huge wave influx that comes in and causes havoc. And there's a jetty that people will go out and fish. I'll do it too, but I know the signs from the waves are coming over at you because they'll just jump up at you. But it's always funny to see tourists just get demolished. I'll be out there fishing for rockfish, and I'll start moving back and reeling in and going, oh, it's time to move. And see people like trying to get closer, and I'm just like, should probably move. Never mind.
Well, stand up.
I hope you brought towels. I hope you brought towels
Better
with
get
you.
out there. But no, I mean we get wrecks out here all the time. We know people.
Yeah, people getting their cars totally blown off the jetty because
Yeah.
they're dumb enough to drive out there.
The ocean
nuts,
is a
like, people-
scary place.
It's
and
spoopy.
It's
and-
scary.
being where we are, like you said, we were a primary trade hub for a long time because we're the closest point to China. But it's not just that; it's we're one of three on the coast of the U.S. that can take large vessels.
Yeah.
We're one of three. That's Seattle.
Well, it's only when we
and San
dredge
Francisco.
it.
Those are the
Yeah.
only three, and us. Those are the only ones.
What about
And
San Diego? They have the big port down there.
San Diego's not a port as much as
Yeah.
it's a port, but it's not a bay port. I don't think.
Oh.
But yeah, we're one of the people that's why the railroad used to be so big around here. But that's the thing is the ghost stories around here, man. They're a dime a dozen. Talking to people like the old buildings. We used to have like farmers markets and or was it an old warehouse that was so creepy that
Yeah,
where
the
all
farmers market.
The flea market. That's what
Flea
it was.
market, yes.
Yeah,
Right.
like
Farmers
Oh,
market.
that place.
it was
you told me about.
like when
Yeah.
we were little kids, we used to go there with
Yeah.
all these like shops and stuff. But it was so creepy to go in there.
I used to
'cause-
buy so many cool video games there.
Uh-huh.
Ninja stars and illegal weapons that they can't sell to kids, but did because they didn't care.
And then you get.
I had so many ninja stars and throwing knives and
But
swords.
the truth is, like when you walk down our streets, you'll see these brand new builds and stuff like that that are really nice. And you look over, there's like a Victorian mansion that's been there for like 200 years or like 100 years
There's
or
a
whatever.
lot
It's,
of
it's
old
nuts.
buildings.
So in Eureka, exactly. In Eureka, you'll go to a row of like a street of houses, and there'll be like super nice houses, and one super derelict one slap dab in the middle of these really really nice Victorians. And there's another Victorian that looks like crackheads live there because
Yeah.
fucking crackheads live there.
Yeah.
Just,
I mean-
it's nuts.
Well, like Port Humboldt, the one we mentioned earlier, where when we go, they do tours for
Mhm.
like schools and stuff every once in a while, and they talk about like what was it? They have kayaks there. They have canoes that were original dugouts from was it the Yurok?
Yurok or the Karuk, I can't remember.
I
it's
think
Yurok.
I think you might have been the Karuk actually.
Oh no, yeah, it's
I think
Karuk.
you're
Sorry.
And they tell the story
believe.
because I remember
Not
it
sure.
stuck with me because when you go there, this place is beautiful and it's wide open. There's only like 2 buildings on it really that are like old. The others are like the stations for the workers there. But you go there and just walking the grounds is really like you always feel like someone's there with you when you walk through that location.
Yeah.
You always feel it. And then when you go up to those buildings, you just feel like you don't really want to look through it. But they're just museums now. And they got stuff in
Yeah,
there.
it's just it's a national park, and you can go check it out. It's open daily. It's
Mm-hmm.
really pretty. You can see a really good view of the bay. You can fly kites up there. It's
Yeah,
really
it's
nice.
gorgeous.
They used to do Civil War reenactments,
Mhm.
and they would run the steam donkeys every once in a while, which are really cool. They're still
Oh, yeah.
functioning. It's a really nice little place to go and check out. But it's also supposed to be haunted too. Maybe we'll do an episode on that.
You got log haulers and stuff like old lumbering equipment, but when you go in the buildings, they tell the story about the kayaks and stuff like that. And what they said was, I don't know if it was just because we were kids, but people tell me that it was real. But when the workers would come in and these kayaks would essentially have moved across the room, or they'd be facing different directions. And these are like wooden dugout canoes. They're not really
Yeah.
light. You know, it takes a couple people to move them, but they would come in and these things would be like different places in the room, like they'd be up against a wall.
These are
or
big
moved
kayaks.
and just the kayaks. It's
Canoes, not kayaks.
like but it's like it's not like you know, it's not like all the like the artifacts that are in there that move, but it was just the canoes would keep trying to move, and they said that
Yeah.
the belief was that the canoes had a heart to themselves, according to the local peoples, and that they wanted to return to the water and the people that they belonged to.
You would think they'd want to return to the forest because they were made for redwood trees, but
Yeah, that makes more sense. to me.
Anyway. So back to the Scotia Inn. You can go stay there. You can get rooms. It says on the website, $800 and below a night. So
What? 800?
800.
I swear to God, it's on the
You
website.
have got to be kidding right now.
For a normal room?
It's,
What?
look, dude. I don't
that
make the
come
shit.
with
I just shovel
Are
it.
you kidding?
Does
No,
that come
I'm
with your
not
own
kidding.
personal masseuse and
You
all
can go.
the
You
things
can go to the
want?
website. Don't believe me? Look it up.
Wow.
It's there.
It's
That's
not for
Look,
us, is what it
it
means.
also has a disclaimer that the prices will be usually much, much less than that.
That's really
It's
I
just
can't
for the
imagine
summer,
what
probably.
circumstance it would be $800 a room to stay in anywhere in Hamilton County
Oh,
for
yeah.
any purpose
Anywhere,
whatsoever
ever.
at all outside of Vegas when you're super rich.
Well,
Yeah,
or
Vegas
Abu
or
Dhabi
New
or
York
something.
Or somewhere.
to to the point
Yeah.
like
I'm sure it's more like $120 a
and
night.
if people were wondering when we just kind of
Yeah.
like said, oh, people die out here and no one really cared like what they thought, you got to realize when you come out in this area, like when a tree falls in anywhere else in the world and covers the road, you can move it in like a day. When a tree falls out here, you can't get anywhere you're going. You're spending a
Yeah.
week
You're
going
close-
hundreds of
yeah.
miles out of your
There's
way.
only a couple ways into where we live. It's like 4
There's
ways
like-
in,
yeah.
aside from the ocean. You know, the only X amount of roads.
There's one main road, and then there's.
Yeah.
And part of the
Yeah.
year, 2 of them are usually closed.
And every single
Yeah.
one of them, I think
3.
I
Because
think
of the weather.
two of them, they're on the national most dangerous highway list.
I think so, yeah.
I think it's the one north and the one towards Reading. They're both on the national most dangerous road
Right.
lists.
So anyway, though, back to the Scotia Inn. Yeah, so let us know if you stay there. If you stayed there before, let us know in the comments. Like, let us know about if you had experiences, if you didn't have experiences. You know, we love the comments. The more comments, the better.
Yeah, give us that.
The more
Give us all the
comments,
comments.
the more views, the more attention we get.
If you have a town,
Katie likes attention.
if you guys have a town, a story, or
It was too easy.
I do. I don't actually. I don't like attention. Don't look at me.
no,
But don't look at me.
if you have a town, a story like a building or something like that, or a town, a ghost story, or something like that that you really like and you'd be interested to see on the show, we'll do the research. We'll look it up.
Yeah.
Just shoot us the name.
That'd be cool.
You know,
Yeah.
give us a like, give us a subscription, and then shoot us the names of these things, man.
There's a lot of haunted towns.
Yeah.
Places.
We would love to
so.
share these stories. Like, and the thing is we're not talking like, you know, like what's the big asylums? Everybody does the same thing. Like all these big asylums, all these stories. If you just have like a freaking business, we'll talk about it. We like the small town stuff.
Yeah.
We like talking about small town stuff, like our town.
Yeah.
So let
That
us
said,
know.
if you're in one of the haunted Toys R Us's, we want an invitation.
Yeah,
I don't want to grow up.
Yeah.
I want to hunt ghosts like a kid.
I miss Toys
Anyway.
R Us.
So, anyhow, guys, thanks for watching. We're going to try to do more of these like haunted things and try to get the more paranormal and spooky aspect as we are getting close to the season of miracles. It's upon us. Close to Halloween, if you can tell. I'm starting to decorate more. I know it's already. Jay, what are you talking about? Your studio's always Halloween eccentric, but I
We've got a
digress.
skeleton now.
Word. I'm trying to get a real one.
Some
You know how
other stuff
expensive
that
those are?
I'm covering.
Yeah, I got Scully #2 over there.
We have a little, light up. He's not making fog for some reason.
He probably just
There's
no.
water in there. I don't know.
He just because it was like $5 at the dollar store.
Yeah.
Occam's razor here, guys. Come
$5
on.
at the dollar store.
I got Scully in there. Maybe I'll bust Scully out. I think I even have a new.
Where is he?
It's in one of the containers in the house for the holiday
He's
decorations.
eating the monkey here.
I guess I still got to go through stuff from
He needs
last
a
year.
makeover.
I think you,
If you specialize in Halloween makeovers, hit us up.
yeah.
Maybe we'll feature you on the show and you can be a guest and give us all Halloween makeovers to the studio.
Ooh, or Halloween makeup or SFX.
For a second, I thought you were going to say S&M. I was like, no, not for this show.
No, wrong show.
SFX.
Let's Vanishing Eight's After Hours on Patreon, okay? Whenever we open our Patreon back up,
Or have after hours.
or have the after, well, that'll be after the Patreons open up. That'll be open for the patrons. Anyway, I'm Jay. These are
Still perturbed Jack.
Katie Cat.
all right. Good night, and well, good nightmares.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.